Our next speaker describes herself as an astronomy educator. She is also a proud Wiradjuri woman and has a deep passion for space and astronomy. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kirsten Banks.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Okay, now, because we've just had this wonderful talk just then, and you've been sitting down for a little while, I want everyone to stand up. I'm serious. Everyone stand up right now, give it a bit of a stretch, and say, I'm ready to be skeptical, and give your second person next to you a high five. Okay? Excellent. You can all sit down now. All right, so thank you guys for being here today. My name is Kirsten, of course, as a wonderful little introduction just then. I'm here to talk to you guys about Aboriginal astronomy. But before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land that we're meeting on today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and also extend my acknowledgement to the areas where a lot of this information comes from today, and to those elders and to all Indigenous peoples of Australia as well. So what am I about? So look, we're going to be talking about emus can't fly, but there's an emu in the sky. Little ambiguous. That's what I like to do. But first, I'd like to get a bit more acquainted. Nope, never mind. That slide's not in there. So a little bit about me. I love talking about space. I also love talking with my eyebrows, apparently. I've been told. But my dream in life is to be a big famous science communicator so I can share my passion for space and astronomy with the entire universe. That's what I'm about, so I'm going to start with you guys today. Is that okay? Excellent. So getting into the Aboriginal astronomy side, so I am a proud Wiradjuri woman, so from central New South Wales, and the night sky from out there looks just like this. It is incredible. Has anyone seen a night sky like this before? If you haven't, do it sometime. It is breathtaking, and the first time I saw the Milky Way for the first time, I cried. Honestly. Cried. So obviously we don't get this sort of view from Sydney because we have lots of annoying light pollution, but when you go out into a place where you have very little light pollution, you get a beautiful sky like this. Now before I get into the Indigenous astronomy side of things, I just want to share with you a first perspective that you're all pretty aware of already. That is the Western perspective of the night sky. When you look up in the night sky, we're very good at finding patterns and different pictures. So of course we all know the constellations. And if we look at them, some of them make sense. Others not so much. For example, you have the Scorpion, of course, nice and big up there. Actually looks like a scorpion, sort of. But then you have the great almighty Hercules. Not sure how great almighty a square is, but we'll see how it goes. So these are the constellations we know and love and enjoy to look at in the night sky and find them in the night sky. But when we look at an Indigenous perspective of the night sky, we go back to this view. So constellations in this sense are a little bit different, where a single star will represent a single object. So for example, the Southern Pointers, if you can find them up there, you've got the Southern Cross up here and the two pointers. In Kamilaroi astronomy, about a story about the Southern Cross where it's a tree, those two stars, each one represents a bird of the white kind with a yellow mohawk, which is? Good, excellent. This is what's going to happen, by the way. It's not just going to be me talking at you. I find that boring. Not to say that anyone... Anyway, we'll go through this. This is fine. So individual stars represent individual things. That's what it's all about. But we do have something else up there that's very salient, that pops out quite a lot in the sky. And that's obviously the Milky Way. It's the most salient thing in the sky right now. It's like a red carpet or a star carpet across the entire night sky. And of course, you would suspect that it would appear a lot in culture. And it does. So I'm going to start with a few different views of the Milky Way. The first one comes from the Kamilaroi people, which is a group just south of the New South Wales and Queensland border. To them and in their stories, they see the Milky Way as a waterway or a stream called Wurrumburu, which is why I've strategically picked this picture, where you have the waterway and the stream in the sky, as well as the waterway or stream on the ground. Because a very important concept in Aboriginal astronomy is what is in the sky is matched and mirrored on the ground. That's what you'll see a lot through this sort of stuff. Now if we go down to northwestern Victoria, we go to this view. And I'm going to hand over to you guys, see if you can figure out what this view is meant to be. Smoke, yeah, exactly. It is a smoke from the campfires of what they're called the Narrabungattia, who are the old spirits of the Burong Nation. So that's their view of the Milky Way, and they call it Waring. Now, my favorite, and no, I'm not biased at all, my favorite is this guy who comes from Wiradjuri. We see, this is another constellation, but it's made up very differently from what we've seen so far. What we've seen so far is we use the bright parts of the night sky, the stars. We connect the dots. In this case, we use the dark parts of the night sky. So looking into the Milky Way, you can see these dark patches, which are not absence of stars, but you have dust and gas that's blocking the light from those distant stars. When you look at those dark patches, we see an emu. Can everyone see an emu in there? Can anyone not? Please be honest. Awesome. Okay, so I will point it out. So if we start at the very top, we have this little dark patch here. That is a dark nebula called the Coalsack in Western astronomy, but it is the head of our emu. If we continue down, we have this nice long skinny patch here, is the long neck of an emu, and then the big bulge here is, you guessed it, the body. So can everyone see it now? Excellent. You will not be able to unsee it. If you go out into a place with very little light pollution, you see the Milky Way, you'll be like, hey, emu. It's cool. And it's not just a pretty thing to look at as well. We use our night sky to let us know when is the right time to go find certain foods, to let us know when a season is changing. So with the emu, as I like to call it Gugurman in Wiradjuri language, Gugurman, we can actually use its position in the night sky to let us know when is the right time of the year to go looking for emu eggs. And we're going to do that. And I swear, I hope there's no emus in the room because they will be terrifying. So, to know when is the right time of the year to go looking for emu eggs, when you see the emu, Gugurman, running along the horizon like this, or he looks like he's in that sort of running position, right? This indicates to us that we see it as a female emu running around trying to find a mate and to make the nest. So no emu eggs just yet. But later in the year, when the body of Gugurman rises up and is directly above us in the night sky after the sun has gone down, this is usually in June, July, the coldest parts of the year, we now see the body of the emu as an emu egg in a nest. So that picture changes for us. And so that, when we see that, and when it's in that position, we know this is the right time to go looking for emu eggs. So, let's do it. You may have seen me carrying in this thing when I came through before. Does anyone know what this is? That would be correct. Yes, usually someone says a small didgeridoo, which is true. It does look like a small didgeridoo. It's hollowed out the same way as didgeridoos are, except it's just cut shorter. So when we know that the sky is in the right position, myself and a friend would go out into the bush. Haven't personally done it, because emu's terrifying. But we know the sky's at the right spot, we take our emu caller out, and we go looking for an emu sitting in the nest. Does anyone know which emus sit on the nest, male or female? Male, very good. You all know your emu biology. So we look for a male sitting on the nest. They're usually relatively easy to find. You just look for the big long neck pecking down for food. So once you find a male, my friend will hide behind a bush and make this sound. That is the sound of a male emu. It's kind of like resonates from their chest. It's really cool. Now, what do you think the emu will do when it hears that sound? It will come looking for you. That's right. They are very territorial animals, and they will chase you. So, while my friend is being chased, I can then go to the emu egg nest and pick up a few emu eggs. Very safely, of course. They always draw the short straw. I wonder why. But I have a very important question. Would you take all of the emu eggs? No. Great answer. Why not? I heard someone say it. Sustainability. Who'd have thought, right? So yes, you take one or two, plus an emu, they lay around 30 to 40 eggs in one season. Not to be confused with one sitting, because that would be terrifying. No, 30 to 40 eggs in one season, a few eggs each couple of days. So yeah, only take 1 or 2, plus emu eggs, they are huge. That's plenty of scrambled eggs for a whole week, if you ask me. So that's all we need to do, and once we've done that, hey, we found our emu. Alrighty, so of course, talking about astronomy and talking about culture, we like to talk in stories. So I'd like to share with you 4 different star stories today, where these 4 stars have recently gained global significance from originating from Australia. But a bit of background first. So the International Astronomical Union, so the IAU, last year in December, I believe, released 86 new star names. This is not saying that we found 86 new stars. They existed. They had maybe numbers for names. But the IAU, they come together to create a standardized list of star names. Because with there being thousands of cultures across the entire world, literally just hundreds in Australia, you would agree that a star like this would have thousands of different names, correct? Yeah, it makes sense. But the IAU, they come out and say, officially, internationally, that star is Betelgeuse. And it is, by the way, those who didn't know. We better not say that word too many times. But, so that's what they do. They create a standardized list of star names that takes out the confusion of, no, this is this star, no, it's this star. And so the less arguments there. So these 4 stars, recently named, they have official Aboriginal names from different regions in Australia, and they now have global significance. They are known worldwide by these names. So I'm going to share with you guys the stories of these stars. The first one is Energonite. So this comes from the Burong people back down in northwestern Victoria again, near Lake Tyrrell. And Energonite is an ancestral figure. Now, it's not part of the dog in their culture. This is just to give you an idea of where it is in the night sky, if you know of these constellations. So it is, yes, the butt of the dog. But nonetheless, in Burong culture, it is an ancestral figure with 2 wives. How many wives? Just checking you're still with me here. So, yes, he has 2 wives, which are the 2 stars either side of him. So you have Energonite and his 2 wives either side. Now, this story involves the moon, which is called Mitian, and is represented by a quoll. And Mitian falls in love with one of the wives and tries to lure her away. Now, you'd be pretty understanding if Energonite got pretty mad, right? Yeah, so Energonite finds out about Mitian's trickery and challenges him to a battle. And the moon is left not defenseless, but like he loses the battle and is left to wander the skies for the rest of time with the battle scars still seen on his face. And I hear people saying, that's my favorite sound, by the way. It's like, I get it. So with these stories, what I like to say is that the night sky is like our canvas for these stories. We use the night sky to paint our picture that we're trying to tell through telling these stories. And so, of course, the battle scars are the craters. So we see the craters on the moon, and so we see those as the battle scars in this story. So that is star number 1, that is officially known as Energonite worldwide. Star number 2 comes from the Wardaman region. So this is a group just southwest of, it's a town Kimberley in the Northern Territory. So this star is now officially known as Warren, which I have to say sounds very Australian, doesn't it? Very Australian. So, but in Wardaman culture, this Warren means child, or in this context of the story is a little fish, which gives water to the echidna, which is then directed into small bowls where initiates who are part of a ceremony, earthly initiates, to carry in those bowls that water. And the water comes from a particular waterfall. And we've all seen a waterfall before. You know, the water falls down, funnily enough, because it's called a waterfall. Water falls down and lands in the body of water below, and a mist comes up from the interaction. That's where this water comes from. And that mist indicates it's also meaning the clouds coming along for the monsoon season. So, when this star is high up in the night sky, as seen from the Wardaman area, that indicates to them that the monsoon season is about to start. So again, we have a seasonal menu and a seasonal calendar right up there in the sky, which is great. Star number 3, we have Larawag, which is one of the body stars of the scorpion. And little side note, who here has seen Moana? The Disney movie? Yes? I love Moana too. It's such a good movie. Little side note, Maui's fishhook That is Maui's fishhook. In Indigenous Polynesian astronomy, that is actually legit. Who'd have thought you'd learn something other than morals from a Disney movie? So back to Waterman astronomy. So with Larawag here, each star in the body of the scorpion is a different part of a ceremony or a different stage. Larawag is known as the signal watcher, and he gives the all clear signal for when an initiate can move through to the next part of the ceremony. So that's Larawag. And now the fourth one, for my favorite one, and you'll see why, is this guy. You may have seen this guy in the news around December last year. So one of our iconic stars of the night sky, it's on our flag and tattooed on some Australian persons. This star is now officially known internationally, worldwide, as its Waterman Indigenous name, Ginan, which is really quite sweet because what that means, it represents a small red dilly bag full of knowledge that's passed on from generation to generation, which is kind of sweet. It's got a nice little sentimental thing to think. And also, again, with the canvas, the red colour comes from the colour of the star, because it's actually an orange giant. I think it's about 67 light years away or so. So again, that canvas of we see this in the night sky, this is what we're painting our picture to be, which is great. So those are the 4 stars that are now officially known worldwide and internationally as their Indigenous names. And I'll tell you what, little sneaky peek, I think there's 2 more coming out soon, which is great. It's like a step in the right direction. Speaking of stepping in the right direction, I took it out, never mind. So sorry. But still, we can make this work. Stepping in the right direction to planets. Who doesn't love planets? Everyone loves to look at the planets. Right now we have 4 planets up in the night sky. We are spoilt for choice, or 4 visible planets in the night sky, and it's fantastic. But we don't know a lot about how the planets play a role in this narrative of Aboriginal astronomy. Because when you talk about astronomy, you talk a lot about the stars, because without stars, do you really have astronomy? They kind of go together, don't they? But we don't know a lot of the planets. So I joined Dr. Dwayne Hamaka to find out more about the role of planets in Aboriginal astronomy. So I'd like to share with you a few of my favourite parts that we found. But first we have to get one thing straight. Which one's a star and which one's a planet? Because as I tell you what, most of what I did as a student was reading through old papers and old literature, which was usually written by anthropologists who do their job very well. They just don't know a lot about astronomy. And so they would mix up stars or planets all the time, and it got very tedious towards the end. So we need to get this straight. Which one is which? So now that you had a bit of a moment to have a look and ponder, we'll go for a show of hands. Who thinks the top one is a star and the bottom one is a planet? Who thinks the other way around? Who has no idea? Great. To be fair, it's a lot easier to tell when you're actually seeing these things in the night sky. On a screen, very different, very hard. So don't feel discouraged if you get it wrong, but here is the answer. We have a star and planet. Can anyone guess what the planet is? No, not Saturn, it's Mars. So I love these 2 things because you have Mars and you have Antares. And if anyone knows their Latin, they'll know that Aries is another name for Mars. Ant means not, so that star is literally not Mars. Because even astronomers would get the 2 mixed up all the time. They'd be like, wait, hold on, let's look at Mars. Wait, that's not Mars. We better call it not Mars, just to be sure. So, just be sure. Not Mars, Mars. Mars, not Mars. Got it? It's up in the night sky tonight. We'll be able to figure it out. If it's not cloudy, fingers crossed. Okay, so now that we've cleared that up, let's go through a few things that are pretty exciting, or that I found pretty exciting. But first things first, I am full of shameless plugs. I took that photo of the moon with my phone up to a telescope. Took me 3 years of practice to get it perfectly lined up. Got 150 retweets on Twitter. I'm like, oh, so fun. Anyway, so some of our results that we found is that we found a lot of use of navigation. And that is actually the other reason why I put this photo of the moon up, because the Waterman people would actually use kind of like a sundial, but instead a moon dial, where they would be the moon dial, and they would use the shadow cast by the moonlight at nighttime to navigate and know where they're going, which is quite remarkable if you think about it, because the moon obviously changes phase, changes brightness, is up at different times of the night quite drastically from night to night. So to be able to navigate through that is quite incredible, at least I think. We also have a lot of representation of relationships. We've already seen a rival relationship between Energonite and the moon, Mitian, from before. We also have romantic relationships, where of course we have the sun woman and the moon man. And what do you think happens when they come together? Star babies. That's great. A solar eclipse, obviously, of course. A solar eclipse. Yes, so we have lots of relationships here as well, and my absolute favorite is the embodiment of laughter. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, as I did too when I was going through this, like, how can a planet represent laughter? Well, I'm glad you asked. So Venus, like when we're talking about planets and telling the difference between a planet and a star, what I like to remember is the old nursery rhyme, twinkle, twinkle, little star, not twinkle, twinkle, little planet. So stars twinkle and planets don't. But there is an exception to the rule. For example, Venus is often found quite low in the sky. Right now it's quite high and quite brilliant and bright, but often it is very low in the sky, and of course when the light comes through the atmosphere it wobbles a lot more, makes it a lot more twinkly and wobbly. So when Venus is low in the sky and we see it scintillating like this and twinkling, we see that as Yaling Dawa, an old rude man, who made a rude joke one day and has been laughing at his rude joke ever since. So next time you see Venus twinkling, that's him still laughing at his joke. And it must have been a cracker. I don't know what it was, but it must have been a really good joke. So these are some of the things we can find with the actual planets themselves, but we also look at other planetary phenomena. So when you look at planetary science, you look at the planets, how they move, all that sort of stuff. There's also other things like the ecliptic. So this line that we see here is the apparent path of the sun throughout the year as we orbit around it. And what you'll notice is a lot of the planets either lie very close or even on that line. One of the questions I get often is, why is the moon times 10? I like the moon and I like to make it look bigger on my program. But yeah, so you see the planets, they all lie very close to or even on the line. That's an effect of how our solar system was created. And you can actually obviously see this in the night sky, especially when you have all the planets up. And you can navigate using that as well. Incredible stuff. Other things we see is this wonderful little soft glow. It's called, I always butcher this saying, but zodiacal light. Zodiacal light. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. It's this soft glow of leftover dust and debris within our solar system that is lit up by the sun. And it only happens at certain times of the year, usually when the ecliptic is highly angled to the horizon. And this is often seen as ropes hanging from Venus. So who knows, maybe next time this happens, Yaling Dawa will come down and tell us his joke. Let's hope so. And then the final thing is one of my favorites, this wonderful thing called occultation. So an occultation is when one object passes in front of a second object, blocking the light from the second object. So kind of like a solar eclipse. Or in this case, you have the moon passing in front of little Mercury there and coming out the other side. I think sometime within the next 5 years, I know, broad, but the moon's going to do an occultation with Saturn at some point soon, which will look really, really cool. So keep an eye out for that. But we've actually already seen this in one of our stories. Very subtly, thinly veiled within the story. Our story, rewinding back to our story about Energonite and the moon, and our canvas being the night sky, when we see the moon actually does an occultation with not two, but only with one of the wives of Energonite. So that indicates, that signifies him trying to lure her away. The moon also does an occultation with Energonite, which would be him and the moon battling. So again, this whole thing about the canvas and seeing this and being able to take meaning from it and thinly veil science into our stories, which I think is just absolutely incredible and mind-boggling in the same sense. So that's about all of the content I want to share with you guys today. But if you're intrigued and you want to learn more about this stuff, I do recommend going to our website, www.aboriginalastronomy.com.au. So on this website, you can read my paper about the planets in Aboriginal astronomy, if you like. A light 15 pages of reading. But you can also search by area, so Wiradjuri, Gamilaroi, Waterman, Burong, or you can even search by topic. So you can search by stars, constellations, meteors, eclipses, anything you can put your mind to. We are still in the process of putting a lot of stuff up there, so do be patient with us, but there's plenty of stuff up there right now that you can peruse, and please do, because it is fantastic. And one last thing before I finish up. I often mention at the start my ultimate goal and ambition in life, and I did. I want to be a science communicator. To do that, often there's this thing called social media. So, I do have social media. I am on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as Astro Kirsten, because what else did you expect from someone in astronomy to be on social media? Astro and then their name. So I am Astro Kirsten, and just to entice you that little bit more, I have great swagger. I have a dressing gown with my Astro Kirsten tag in the back. Thank you guys so much.
Astro Kirsten, that was amazing. Thank you so much. We have one quick question before we let you go.
Love it.
And we have another one coming through. Woo, here we go. All right, Kirsten, can you please explain how to tell the difference between planets and stars, or do you just have to know?
You don't just have to know. So, okay, context between the ones in the sky. Remember Twinkle Twinkle Little Star instead of Twinkle Twinkle Little Planet. Between stars and planets in general, one is a hot furnace of hot gas, one is not.
Too easy.
I like to get straight to the point.
The question's just been added. When looking with the naked eye, so...
With the naked eye, yes. So Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, stars twinkle, planets don't. And you can find, hopefully if it's clear tonight, you'll find, I don't know which direction is which inside this room. West is that way? Okay, we'll go with that. So from west to east, you'll have bright Venus, and then a bit higher will be not as bright Jupiter. Directly above you will be a very faint Saturn, and then a very bright Mars towards the east. So there you go. And they won't be twinkling until Venus gets very low, and then Yaling Dao is laughing at his joke.
Another question. I like this one because I agree. Your dress is amazing. Where did you get it?
Yes! The dress I am wearing is painted by an Indigenous artist. It is from Bandara Sportswear. I definitely recommend going there and supporting Indigenous businesses and artists, because all of this stuff that you buy, the money goes to the business and the artists directly. And it is the Tree of Life skater dress. So there you go. Great stuff out there.
Amazing.
Thank you for whoever asked that. I did wear it for a reason.
It's been noticed. Look, there are more questions coming in. We could be here forever. How did you get into science communication?
Oh, okay. So I used to be a very, very shy person in high school and primary school. I know. How did that happen? But there's a story, because I work at Sydney Observatory as a tour guide. I've been working there for 3 and a bit years now, and it was starting working at Sydney Observatory. And the story of how I actually got that job is quite funny too. I was asked on a date there, but I didn't realise it was a date at the time until we got there. It's like, okay. So the date didn't go so well, but I got a job, and I just fell in love with science and space, and not the person, sorry. But ever since then, I was like, love talking about space. I could be having the worst day ever, but then I'd come into work and talk about space for hours and get paid to look through a telescope. I'm like, yep, I'm good.
Sounds like the best date ever. Last question. How hard is it to find stories from all the Aboriginal language groups across Australia?
It is difficult because a lot of this stuff it's passed down by spoken word, right? We don't write this sort of stuff down. So it is hard to get the trust as well from elders too if they're not from your own country, and a lot of the researchers aren't Indigenous as well. So there's definitely barriers to move through. But we're trying, and we're getting it out there as much as we can.
Great, and thank you for sharing your stories with us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank Kirsten Banks.